Welcome back to War Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Thanks for everybody for joining as always. We're about a week into training camp. A lot to talk about on today's episode. September 29th, that's next week, is our next live show. That'll be at Tuttle's, 7 p.m. September 29th is our next live show. We have booked 2 shows for October as well. October 6th, 3 days before the regular season starts, right? Yeah. October.
Yep, they open the 9th in St. Louis.
Yes, there we go. So October 6th is at Elsie's and October 23rd is at Tuttle's. That's after that long road trip. So the 6th at Elsie's, the 23rd at Tuttle's, but first, September 29th at Tuttle's. So come on out for that show. Anthony, the Wild put out today's roster for the lineup, which is Thursday night against the Dallas Stars. Am I right on that one?
Yep.
All right. Preseason game. We're going to get a first look at the top line, which is Marco Rossi, Matt Boldy, and Kirill Kaprizov. And then the second line, Eric Sinek has the night off. We know that Matt Zuccarello is injured. Liam Ohgren and Vladimir Tarasenko, and a huge opportunity for Danila Yurov. Yurov's played the first 2 exhibition games. He looks like he's progressing and getting better and better. But this is going to be his first opportunity to play with 2 skilled line mates. And really, he's, the hope is that he's going to take advantage of that and maybe produce some points, which he hasn't been able to do so far, except for an assist in game 1.
No, but I think he's looked good.
Yeah.
And his game has some of the little things in it. We've heard so many times when asked, like, what kind of player is Yurov, that he's a smart hockey player, does all the little things well. We've seen that. I like the way he skates. I really hadn't had a chance to see him other than highlight clips, but when you watch him, he moves smoothly and effortlessly, hasn't been out of position, and I think it is a big opportunity for him. I don't think this is like a chance to grab a role in the top 6, but it's a great opportunity to show that if a short-term situation arises, even if it's just within a game, to give a spark, that you're capable of jumping up in the lineup and being that guy.
Yeah, and Tarasenko is one of the players like Yakov Trenin that has really tried to mentor him to start with. Yurov was funny today with Joe Smith, who did a big Tarasenko story for The Athletic on Thursday. Yurov told Joe that Tarasenko essentially does his laundry. He'll bring a bunch of T-shirts and stuff to the practices, give it to Tarasenko, and he brings it home and does his laundry. So, not a shock if you know who Vladimir Tarasenko is. He's a respectful guy that I think at this stage in his career really looks to try to, be some sort of mentor to some of these young kids. So that's really cool. He's gotten a chance to play with Trenin, who's been a big help his first couple games in the preseason, but now he's going to get a really good role on the second line. He looks to me like he has a, the ability to be a real quality two-way forward. I still think at this stage where we haven't gotten to see him, we don't exactly know still what he's going to be in the NHL. Is he going to be a star? Is he going to be a great top 6 forward? Is he going to be a perfect middle 6 center? We'll see. But he certainly looks like he's gotten all those pro habits that we expected from the KHL.
Yeah, I think that's true. Obviously you have to show it in the regular season. But at this point, what we've seen certainly hasn't diffused any optimism in that area, I don't think. But these are the kind of chances that I think this camp has been interesting, and it's been intense, similar to last year. We haven't really seen these guys, the veterans, the go-to guys in game situations yet. So now it's the chance where you get the guys that had a lot to prove coming into camp. Here's your opportunity now to play with the guys that you know are going to be here, because that's a big difference. There's a big difference when you're playing with proven NHL players than when you're playing with other roster hopefuls. This is where you have to show that you can play at their pace. You can keep up with the game that's played at their speed, with their level of physical play, that kind of stuff. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. And it's still the preseason. Like 2 years ago, Marco Rossi was not ready for the regular season. He showed it, and yet he led the league in preseason points. So it's definitely not the end-all be-all. We saw Adam Beckman light up the preseason once as well, and I don't even know if he's gotten any NHL games really at all. So it's definitely not everything. But, another good opportunity for Liam Ohgren. I thought the other night in Dallas, he had a really good first period, was not very good in the second and third period. So this is a big opportunity because in practices so far, in the scrimmages, Anthony, Ohgren's been really, really good. He's shown that he's willing to unleash shots. He's shown his speed. He looks like he's ready to really take advantage of Matt Zuccarello being out to start the season with this injury that he has. But he's got to play better than he did the other night in Dallas.
That's true. And if you're going to put him on a line in Matt Zuccarello's spot, and now all of a sudden you're playing with, let's just say, potentially you're playing with Tarasenko and Eriksson Ek, or Tarasenko and Rossi, or something like that, you can't just be a passenger. You have to be more than that. And he hasn't shown that yet in the NHL, but he certainly looks like it. And there have been plenty of times where just watching him shoot the puck, that to me was the skill that he had that was most quickly visible, because that just isn't normal. You can see it even in mooring skates, where all the way the puck comes off his stick, that doesn't change. But he has to now show that he can do that in game situations. And this is another spot where doing it in practice is one thing. Now in a game, even though it's going to be, Dallas isn't bringing their A team by any means. There'll be some fringe NHL players, and they'll be pretty close to that minimum of the number of vets you have to bring on the road for preseason games. But now you have to be able to do it where you're playing. Here you're playing with a couple guys who you're pretty sure are going to be significant pieces of the Wild this year. One is going to be in the top 6. One you have a pretty good idea is going to be in the lineup every night. Can you produce in that spot?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll get to see the top line, Kaprizov, Rossi, and Boldy. Boldy looks like he's already, sort of rekindled that chemistry that he had with Kaprizov. Boldy looks like he could have a monster season. He just looks awesome. He took a high stick today by David Spacek, was spitting up blood left and right at the practice, but didn't leave. They did mostly a penalty kill practice today. We saw Boldy be a mainstay there. I have gotten a lot of tweets asking why are the Wild playing Kaprizov? When are they just going to, quote, pull him from the lineup because he hasn't signed his contract? He is under contract this year. The Wild have no right and will never pull him out of the lineup unless they're imminently going to trade him, and it's asset management. So you can't just pull a guy that's making $9 million. He's actually making significantly less than $9 million this year, but that's his AAV. You can't just pull him from the lineup and hold him hostage. This isn't the KHL, where they do that if you're not signing a contract. The Wild cannot just not play him because he's not at this juncture signing his extension, Anthony. It's kind of funny, some of the tweets I'm getting from fans on this.
Yeah, and I think I've had the same question asked a few times, and I wonder if there's maybe just a little bit of, misinformation is the wrong word, but misinterpretation, where I wonder if maybe there's a chunk of the fan base out there that thinks that when he turned down the extension, it means he's not signed. He is signed. Mm-hmm. And I had a few people ask me that question this weekend. I was up in the Brainerd area for a golf tournament and had more than a few people ask me, what are we gonna do without Kaprizov? And I was like, well, they have Kaprizov for this year, unless they choose to trade him for something else. Mm-hmm. But this isn't a spot where the guy is holding out without a contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with Kirill. It was pretty interesting when Bill Guerin, he met today with Craig Leopold and Jeff Pellegrin, who is the CFO. So who knows if that's any indication of anything. As of the last week, there really seemed to be no movement. I don't think the Wild, as we've talked about on this podcast, is inclined to just give him any more money, Anthony. I mean, that's the one thing. They've offered him a ton of money, and I just don't see them just, all of a sudden 16 and a half, 17 and a half. I just don't see that.
No, and who knows where it goes. It still wouldn't surprise me if the deal ends up being exactly what was offered and turned down before. Yeah. And I don't have any reason to believe that the Wild, I can't imagine the Wild offering significantly more than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what that number would be if Kaprizov's camp came back with, we need more money. I don't know how much higher you go. And if I were Billy, I might dig in my heels right here and just say, look, this is what we've offered. This is the max. This is more than any player's ever made. That's it. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, if and the way that I think that the Wild are looking at this is that if you don't want to be here at $16 million, we're not just going to keep on upping our price to make you want to be here. You know, they've already offered him the biggest contract ever, and so we'll see where it goes. I still think that the Wild continue to be confident that this is going to all work itself out. I will say this: we are, you know, and this is not something special. This has been planned for a while, and he does this every single training camp for as long as he has owned the team. But tomorrow is the night, meaning Thursday is the night that you know, Craig Leopold is meeting with the media in the suite. So we will get an opportunity to talk to him during the first intermission, watch the first period, the second period. Technically, we could watch the whole game in there, but a lot of us have to go upstairs usually and write. But Anthony, it's going to be interesting the way that he talks, because remember, it was at this meeting last year with the media where he first came out with the line, you know, it's going to be Christmas in July next year, which obviously didn't come into fruition just because a lot of the guys that they wanted to target just re-signed with their teams, and it wasn't the free agent class that the Wild had hoped. But the other thing is that this was the meeting where he did say for the first time publicly, no other team will be able to offer Kirill Kaprizov more money and more term than us, paraphrasing. And then obviously it was a couple of weeks ago at the Grand Casino Arena naming unveiling where he also, you know, made it very clear that this was going to be a groundbreaking offer. So does he sort of temper those comments tomorrow, or does he continue to voice confidence?
Well, he might just reiterate them,
yeah,
and say we did offer more money than anybody else can or has, and we offered more money than anybody's offered to any player in the history of the league. Might just reiterate exactly what he said, other than maybe just adding now it's up to the player to decide if it's good enough to be the highest paid player in the history of the game, or would you rather be somewhere else?
Yeah, that's at some point you're going to have to have that conversation. The other thing Thursday that is going to happen is the Wild teased today is they are going to have their 25-year anniversary jerseys unveiled. That'll happen in the morning. They'll wear them 4 times this year, starting October 28th against Winnipeg. They're also going to announce what their giveaways are for those games. They're also going to have ticket packages that includes bobbleheads, so check that out when the Wild announce it in the late morning. And then on Friday, they are going to announce their opening night festivities, which is pretty cool. They have a bunch of alumni coming back. That's going to be awesome. I'm not going to break any news here, but it's going to be really cool what the Wild are going to announce on Friday. So a lot of cool stuff coming for the 25-year anniversary story. Joe Smith and I also are going to have the 25-year anniversary teams at the fans. We got like tens of thousands of votes for that. So we'll have that as well coming out the first week of the season right before opening night. And we also have a bunch of different panels picking their own teams. Anthony and Ryan are both picking a team. Ryan Carter, Wes Walsh is picking his own team. The equipment manager is going to be picking their team from like who are the best, like, you know, of the 25 years of the organization, who are the best guys to deal with from in terms of equipment. Aaron Smickman, their PR guy since day one, is going to do an all media type team, like the easiest guys to work with. So we have all these different panels picking it out. Tom Reed and Bob Kurtz also doing a team. So a lot of really cool stuff coming on. What do you expect to see tomorrow night from the blue line? You know, like this is going to be, you know, Middleton and Faber are going to get to play. We're going to get to see Zeev Boyum. You know, that we're going to start to see maybe some of their different things that they worked on today on penalty kill. What do you expect tomorrow?
Well, I think it'll be interesting. I think this is a big camp for David Jiricek, and we'll get another look at him. He's shown some flashes. He's also shown some of the same head-scratching personality traits that we saw last year when he played, where it isn't for lack of effort in his own zone, but he just at random times will make offensive-minded decisions, it seems, at least from an outward perspective. It feels like those are the mistakes that are made.
The Rantanen goal, perfect example.
Yeah, just pinches at strange times. But even leaving the zone when his team's got possession and joining rushes sometimes last year where I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, you can't be the fourth guy in the rush when the game situation dictates this. But he's been good in his own zone. Got pretty good reviews on his defensive play in the game in Dallas. This is a big opportunity for both he and Bouyem, because I think, you know, Bouyem missed a little bit of camp, but now was back on the ice and certainly looks confident with the puck, But again, and that could be your third pair going into the season potentially. And but this is a big opportunity.
I think
for those
most
guys.
likely it's going to be Middleton, Faber, and then Boyum and Spurgeon until Brodin comes back. And then
Yeah,
the question is,
right?
is it Jack Johnson and Bogo, Jack Johnson and Jiricek? Is it Bogo and Jiricek?
Yeah, and I probably misspoke. This could be your third set when your defensive core's healthy,
Right.
But these are the kind of spots where you have to see how do these guys work together, and if they work together well enough where you could depend on them in your own zone, then that could be it.
With Jiricek, like at times it does offensively, it's like he just almost wants to prove his worth. Like even last night, another good example to what you were just talking about is like it's 5 minutes left in a 2-2 game, and suddenly he is just flying up the ice, trying to create an odd man rush where it almost really bit them in the butt. So I do think that those are the things that they've got to work on with him, continue. The other thing, I don't know, I know you were driving during the game yesterday, so you probably didn't get to see it, but I don't know if you talked to John Hines about it today. I talked to him about it, but I think Carson Lambos is ready. Like, he looked awesome in his first 2 games. I thought he was great yesterday in Dallas, in all areas, the way he breaks out the puck offensively. So you got to make this decision. Like, are you going to have Jack Johnson on the team as your 7th D, or do you want Lambos maybe on the team? But do you really want 3 young defensemen in your lineup? Because Bogo could be that 7th guy. But you don't want Lambos not playing. So I don't know. It's a bit of a pickle, but I think that Lambos is ready.
I think I'd have to see more, but he certainly looks closer than he's ever looked. And I don't know if I'd want if Zach Bogosian, let's assume Brodin's healthy and no other injuries occur. If Zach Bogosian's your 7th D, would you really want Carson Lambos to be your 8th or 7 and Bogosian 8? Probably not. You'd rather have him playing. So I think it depends on that. If you knew that he was going to be your 7th and envisioned some kind of rotation where you were literally using all 7, that's different. But I might lean toward having him playing every night. But knowing, I don't know, when was the last time that the Wild had 4 defensemen that played 78 games? I mean, it just doesn't happen very often.
No,
I'm talking top 4 defensemen. So my guess would be we'll see him in the NHL this year. Yeah, probably finally. See him more than just a handful of times.
Remember, he came up in Washington last year. We all got excited that we're going to finally see him, and he didn't play. Hunter Haight, another guy that looks really close. He's had a great camp. Just really jumps off the screen. Obviously scored the big tying goal with 2:58 left in Winnipeg the other night to tie that game. He works his butt off. He's incredibly fast. Seems to have the ability to win draws. What have you seen so far from Haight?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's had a good camp. I don't think he's on the verge of cracking the lineup, but I do think there are guys that are at that level where this is a lot to prove, an opportunity to prove in camp, even though they're not going to be in the top 9 on opening night.
Right.
But these are the kind of impressions that are made that can last a long time, because now in the back of the coaching staff's mind, it was, we saw some things from him. I remember over the last few years when it's been this type of player went down, so we need this type of player to come up. And if all of a sudden you've got a player that has a similar skill set that goes down, hey, I remember we saw that guy in camp, looked great. Let's go to him. And so that's where I think these guys have this opportunity is huge for them. And Lambos falls into that too, to make sure that everybody up here knows that it might just be a numbers game that right now is holding him down, not lack of readiness for the NHL.
We'll take a quick break. Quarriers Home Services has been our longest sponsor on Worst Seats in the House, and I've been a customer for years. They're my one-stop shop for cooling, heating, water treatment, plumbing, drains, electrical, absolutely everything. In fact, there's nothing in my mechanical room that they don't take care of. From my furnace, AC, water softener, water heater, my Kinetico drinking water system, absolutely everything. In fact, Nick and Nick were here a few weeks ago giving my furnace a tune-up for the cold winter months ahead, and in a few weeks, they're actually coming out out to do my water softener maintenance and change my Kinetico filters. The quality of service is amazing. There's no upfront pricing. And whether you're repairing or replacing, all your options are provided and explained so you can make the best possible decision. How do you schedule an appointment? Well, go to AquariusHomeservices.com right now and make sure to tell them Russo sent you. Again, AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius Home Services, earning the right to be recommended.
Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
Back here, worst seats in the house. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. September 29th is the next live show at Tuttle's. Funny thing, what probably wasn't funny for any of these guys who were on the trip the other day, but you weren't on the trip. But in Winnipeg, it was a 4 p.m. game. They should have landed at 9:15, but they circled Minneapolis for 2 hours because of a nasty storm here, the hail and all that stuff. They were 10 minutes from landing when the circling began. Finally, they had to refuel in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and wound up landing at 1:15, and then they had to clear customs here. And the problem is because they were coming into Canada, there was only so many airports they can go to refuel, and one of them was Sioux Falls. But can you imagine Danila Yurov, his first road trip is a day trip, and he winds up in Winnipeg and Sioux Falls, and then his second trip is a day trip down to Dallas. Somebody hopefully has told him this is not the way it usually works. Like usually you get some nice nights off in different cities, you get to go to dinner, get to sightsee, all that type of stuff.
It's like a tour of the old Northern League going to Winnipeg and Sioux Falls.
I didn't want to say it,
no.
but I was going to make the joke. He might think that travel's better in the KHL, but I didn't make that joke.
No,
if you're offended, I did not make that joke.
It was interesting. I was talking to Wes Walls today about that flight back, and he said on the way back from Sioux Falls, they obviously are well aware of where the weather storm cell is, and he said so they waited till it was past, but I could see it out my window, and he said the lightning and the electricity in that storm was unbelievable.
Nuts. It truly was a ridiculously electric storm, to say the least. With Yurov, it is really interesting. Nico Sturm's hurt, and he clearly has a back issue. He says it's no big deal, but suddenly he practiced for a couple days, and now John Hines said today that he's going to be off the ice for 4 or 5 days to try to let this thing settle down. This is big. Because again, they started the PK practices today. This is why they acquired him to help their face-off circle, help it on the penalty kill. He was in the meetings today, but wasn't able to get on the ice. So this could open the door for Danila Yurov to make the team, Vinny Hinostroza to make the team. One of these centers have the ability if Nico is going to be banged up to start the year.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's exactly why they brought Nico Sturm in. So that'd be unfortunate, and it's you always feel for guys who, when they feel like, hey, this is where I wanted to land. I got this great opportunity. I've got a team that believes in me. I've now learned what kind of player I am. We've talked about all this stuff on earlier shows, and now to have it be derailed a little bit. And those were the key areas where the Wild were looking for help, was in the face-off circle, on the penalty kill. And this guy brings both.
Yeah, absolutely. On the penalty kill today, we got to see some of their alignments. Obviously, some guys were not in the practice, like Nico, Trenyan, Ohgren, Brett Leeson, who's trying out for the team, Jack Johnson, Jiricek. But we saw Eriksson and Boldy as a pair. We saw Foligno and Rossi as a pair. And we saw Hartman and Johansson as a pair. All the D. Faber was with Middleton. Spurgeon was with Bogosian. And obviously, Zuboyan worked in. The one thing John Hines made it very clear today is they want all the D to know how to PK, because you never know the way game situations are. If you have a couple defensemen in the box, anybody's going to have to go out there. So that was it. But Trenyan has looked great on the penalty kill so far in camp, so we'll see him. And then obviously Nico as well at some point.
I think the addition of the skill players is interesting, and we saw it last year some with Matt Boldy, where you just see the stick skill that they have can be a factor. And now, granted, this wasn't an NHL power play that was running against them, but it did have Tarasenko and Kaprizov on it. And yet, having Boldy and Eriksson Ek up at the top, disrupting entries, that's two highly skilled players who can. I think sometimes people forget that high skill can create problems because of the hand-eye coordination with the stick. That now all of a sudden you're getting your stick on passes coming into the zone that maybe a lesser skilled player doesn't disrupt. And when you get it on your stick, they're making plays to get it out of the zone. And I'm not just talking about that now you have some offensive-minded guys who might be able to score shorthanded. I'm just talking about making plays to get the puck out and be efficient with your clears and things like that. And we haven't seen Marco Rossi on the kill before, but he and Marcus Foligno were working together. And remember last year, John Hines always talked about how I don't know what it is about Rossi and Foligno, but they seem to have chemistry together. So maybe we will see those two together as a penalty kill tandem.
Yeah. And the other thing, I mean, I know you said you weren't talking about shorthanded situations and making plays that way, but as a power play, you do, but right. You have to respect those guys too. Right. Like it's a very different if you see, if you're a power play going up against a Yakov Trenyan versus a Matt Boldy that is a shorthanded risk coming back. So I like we see so many great teams, whether it's Barkov or Reinhardt or Zibanejad and Kreider and Trocheck and Matthews and Marner. I mean, so many teams use their superstars in that way. I've been kind of harping on maybe you put Kirill at some point on the PK. He was not in the PK meeting today. That was obvious. Are you one thing back on Kirill, and I know that we have a lot of questions on Kirill, and we will get to those. Are you a little worried if he doesn't start the year? Now you better. Like there is now pressure that you have to have a good year. Because if all of a sudden the rug comes out from under this season, Anthony, and he's not signed, that now what do you do? That is the risk of starting the season with him not extended. Would you agree?
Well, I don't think there's anybody in the organization that views it as anything less than priority number one to get him signed before the season. So I don't know that to call it a risk is realistic because they do everything in their power to get him signed. But there's the risk of injury, number one. If the team's, I don't know, if it's me and he's not signed, I wouldn't wait long before I'd be at least exploring where could we potentially trade this guy? Yeah. And it isn't because I don't think I can win this year. It's because I got to make sure if he's not willing to commit here long term, I can't have one of the best assets in the history of the organization leave for nothing. And so I don't know that it's that I'd really be looking at how the start worked out as a risk. I mean, to some extent, if I don't have him signed and I feel like I have to trade him, a poor start might make that easier because then you can go to him and say, all right, you want to go somewhere else? Pick a couple teams and I'll start trying to work on a deal. And you could do that. It might make that an easier decision to make.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just think I don't know. It's just like, what's going to change if nothing changes by the end of camp? What is going to change would be my biggest concern if I'm Bill Guerin, and I just don't know how long you can wait as well. I did take a screen capture because I do want to ask Craig Leopold about this tomorrow because this was his first full year as owner. But he lived the Marian Gaborik situation. And if you remember, the Wild offered him in that August, they offered him what we've reported to be a 10-year, $80 million contract. He got hurt October. I'm trying to think. So he played the first 2 games of the season, not even 5. I've been saying 2. First 2 games of the season, Boston at Atlanta. Then he's playing Super Bowl before game 3 in Florida and gets hurt. And that's when they called up Cal Clutterbuck, and the rest is history there. He comes back December 17th, scores a goal and assist. He then plays 3 more games. In his last game, right before Christmas, does this sound familiar if you're a Kirill Kaprizov revisionist from last year? Right before Christmas, scores a goal and assist. We don't see him again, just like Kirill last year. But here's the thing. Trade deadline's March 6th, Anthony. Doesn't come back
The other thing about that is that Gabrick had an elective surgery that the team was not happy about. I remember Doug Riseborough just going ballistic about it. He had it with Dr. Philippon, a hip issue and a hip surgery in Vail, Colorado, if I remember. So he comes back March 22nd. So we're talking 2.5 weeks after the trade deadline. So he's untradeable. He comes back, and in his last, this is unbelievable, in his last 10 games, he scores 10 goals, 13 points. And was just absolutely unbelievable. So he again shows the Wild and the rest of the league that he was the stud that they remember him being. Doug Riseborough is fired. Jacques Lemaire leaves. All of a sudden, Chuck Fletcher is hired in May. He wants the contract back. The Wild, after he missed a full year, their first move was not to give him an $80 million deal back. He leaves via free agency. They sign Marty Havlat. So, I guess my point is that, to your point, you don't want that to happen again. This would be just a devastating thing if that did happen again, if you lose him for nothing, right?
Yeah, obviously. And that's why it's a decision that I know Billy and the rest of the Wild front office hope they never have to make. But I think the reality is you have to be prepared to make that decision if he's not willing to sign it. I mean, you just have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just going to be really fascinating. Does Vinny have any thoughts this week, or do you?
He does have thoughts.
Nice.
Hold on, I haven't read them yet, but he did send them to me, so we'll do this off. We'll just kind of wing it. He said, "Let's see
if they're going to piss me off."
No, I haven't read them yet, so we'll see. First one's about Yurov. Says he doesn't seem to be lighting it up. He also doesn't necessarily seem like a bottom six guy. Assuming Rossi and Eck are 1-2, where does he fit? I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. To me, he does look like he could be a bottom six guy. But
yeah, start this year. I mean, To me, if Mikko, like I've always said this, Mikko Koivu, his rookie year, was fourth line center on this team. He's the all-time leading scorer in Wild history. So it does, sometimes you have to start slow. And Mikko, by the way, was 2 years older than Danila at the time. He was 23 when he debuted for the Wild. So look there to Vinny's point, I mean, Eriksson, Ek, and Rossi are your number 1 and 2. Hartman looks great in camp. He's your number 3. Nico right now is number 4, but he's hurt. So is there room right off the hop? That's the big thing. Does he have to start in the minors, or do you start him at wing? Could he play instead of
wing if you had to?
Yeah, I mean, that could be, and you have 2 centers on that line maybe.
Yeah.
And put JoJo on the 4th line. I don't know. But
they have some options.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a little bit of what I think there are a few examples of with this team, that there's just a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more depth, not in big splashy names, but just these kind of spots where you've got some options. He asked a question about could you legitimately win if your 5-6 D-men are both as young as Buium and Jiricek could be? So this kind of goes back to what I had said earlier. This would only happen once Brodin is back and you have your top 4 intact. But I think Buium would be a guy that would have a chance to supplant somebody in the top 4. Let's say he takes off maybe that second half of this year, and you could get to a spot where maybe he's in the top 4 and Middleton's on your third set. But from the beginning, I think there's a really good chance that your third pair could be Buium and Jiricek. And I don't know if you can win with those 2 guys there together. That's what those 2 have to prove, because they'd love to have Buium in the lineup for obvious reasons. I think they still are excited about the potential of Jiricek, but if those 2 can't defend as your 5-6, that's when Zach Bogosian has to be a realistic candidate to be in your lineup every night.
Or to your point, maybe you try to even out the ice time a little bit. You play a Buium with a Spurgeon, you put a Middleton on a third pair, then late in games you just move Middleton up. Because I agree, it just seems like you're going to want a veteran with one of those 2 young D. To have them together seems like a potential problem, Yeah. I mean, it's that simple.
And the last thought Vinny has is I haven't heard a lot of talk about the PK. So this obviously he sent this morning. This was before today's penalty kill practice. But just said that I know a lot of it was injuries that were last year. But in addition to personnel changes, have you seen or noticed schematic changes Or do you think they're just hoping that the healthy personnel can make it better?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But the one thing they really worked on today, as Foligno talked about in his press scrum, and you were there for that, is that they felt like they were never on the same page at times last year, that some guys were being too lackadaisical.
In terms of when to pressure.
Right, when to pressure. And so now they have, they feel like it was the beginning today of just knowing when the puck's in certain positions on the ice, whether it's in the flank or like when to pressure, when to sit back, that type of stuff. That's very layman. I know that. But
you do have to have consistent personnel to do that, but there are some schematic changes for sure as to where and when they want to pressure, and they tried to increase the pressure at different times last year, and it seemed like guys were not clear on when that was supposed to happen.
They changed it too much last year, and even as Nico Sturm said the other day, when you're in season and you're making a bunch of changes, you just know things aren't going well and it's not going to be well. Like where he said the best teams he'd been on, like last year in Florida, everything was just so instinctual because they always knew what they were going to do. I'll actually, when Nico comes back and he's healthy consistently, I'll write that story because Nico was really good the other day, talking about just the penalty kill and face-offs and tactics and things like that. I had a great conversation with Brock Faber today for a story that I'm going to work on probably for Monday or Tuesday of next week, Anthony, where we talked a lot about last season with him, and he felt like his highs were high last year and his lows were too low last year, and the consistency that we saw from him his rookie year just wasn't there. But the other thing we talked about is an identity with him, and how one thing that when you make $8.5 million and you're really not getting a lot of power play time like he did his rookie year where he was able to get a bunch of points, sometimes it affects you mentally and you think that you're, not having supplying the impact to the team that might be. But what he learned by playing with a guy like Jacob Slavin at the Four Nations, here's the best in the business at his role, that you could still earn your dollars. And that one thing he is really embracing is that his job, most important, is to keep the puck out of his net. And so this year, to what John was talking about the other day, if Boyum's running the number 1 power play and Jiricek's on the team, they're going to want to get Jiricek on that number 2 power play. We know Spurgeon's going to probably get time on that number 2 power play because he's an excellent power play guy. So most likely, unless Boyum and Jiricek don't perform, if they have injuries or one of those D are in the box, Faber is probably not getting consistent power play time this year. So they're going to try to lower his ice time. He's going to really try to embrace that penalty kill and be outstanding there, and also try to get a lot of his points on the at even strength.
Yeah, and you can score at even strength too.
Yeah.
But I think you're exactly right. Now there's a chance this team's been hurting for right shot power play guys seemingly forever. And so I could see a situation where over the course of the year, you might go to 2 right-handed defensemen on that second power play unit.
Which they did at times last year.
Right. And that could be Spurgeon and Faber, could be Jiricek and Spurgeon, Jiricek and Faber, whatever the combo might be on a given night. So I think we'll see him some on the power play over the course of the year, but he isn't going to be running the number 1 power play.
No,
and
not if Boyum looks ready.
Well, and even if Boyum doesn't, I think you see Spurgeon there,
yeah.
And I don't think they're going to. I think they'd like to try to stay away from a lot of those guys being on both special teams, and if you can separate it and minimize how much Faber is on the power play, if you're going to lean on him on the penalty kill. And Spurgeon's a guy that they've used in both, but I think they'd love it if his special teams time was power play time, not penalty kill time, and was a little bit less of a grind on his body.
Because they don't have their full lineup going tomorrow and Eric Snek's not playing, we're not going to know specifically what the power play units are going to be. But Saturday, they are going to practice the power play really for the first time, Anthony. And obviously, Zuccarello's hurt. So your number 1 power play is going to be probably Boyum, Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eric Snek. Who's the 5th guy? Is it going to be Hartman at the bumper? Is it going to be Rossi on that half wall like flank, or Tarasenko? What's your gut say?
Yeah, well, I was talking about that earlier today with Wes Walls and we were just speculating, but my guess is that they go with one of the lefties and make it an all left-handed top group, and it'd probably be Tarasenko would get the first look, and then I would guess Rossi and Hartman end up on your second power play along with Spurgeon and
JoJo and
Johansson probably, and that, which is a serviceable second power play group. And then when you add Zuccarello back and you take another one of those guys off the top unit onto the second, I don't know.
Does it worry you having 5 lefties? We've seen it work.
Really.
We've seen it before where it hasn't worked with this team.
Right. But if you just run it off the other side, now you got one-timer options at every spot. And it can be done. I think you'd ideally love to have at least the one right-hander, so when the puck goes to the other side, you have one guy that can make a play quicker through the middle. But
which would be Hartman.
It could be Hartman, but I don't know if I'd say he's your prototypical bumper guy on the power play. He might be more a net front guy, but he's not going to take your net front spot from Eriksson Ek. So I think he ends up probably more on the second unit. That would be my guess, but we'll see. And this is, again, it's another example of having at least some guys that, remember, over the last few years, Minnesota hasn't had a second power play unit that was dangerous for probably 6 or 7 years right now. And that second unit has been maybe the final 30 seconds of a power play kind of group and rarely been able to even maintain the zone cleanly. Now you've got some weapons there where I think it could feel different.
Right. Let's take a quick break.
Choosing the right banking partner for your business is an important decision. Royal Credit Union supports your business needs now and into the future with flexible checking account options and digital tools to help streamline your business operations. Royal also helps take your business further with treasury management services, including ACH, sweeps, and positive pay. Choose Royal Credit Union for business checking. Get started at rcu.org/Royal Choice. Insured by NCUA.
And I want to tell you about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton's Twill in the Edina Galleria. TwillMN.com is the website. I'm wearing my Johnny O hat. I'm wearing one of my many Peter Millar shirts. Johnny O and Peter Millar are two of my favorite brands out of Twill in the Edina Galleria. When I've been going to Wolves games lately, I've been wearing my Dingman shoes. I've been wearing my Brax pants, my either Peter Millar or Johnny O shirts, pullovers. The Wolves games are weird because they're really cold, and then they turn on the fire jets before the game and singe your eyebrows. You need to be prepared for all kinds of different temperatures in that building. And I just use all my Twill stuff. And as we do more shows here at TalkNorth.com on video, I'll be wearing more Twill stuff because it's really simple. I don't always try to look good. Sometimes I'm very happy being a slob, and I wear old sweats and T-shirts. If I'm trying to look presentable in any way, Talk North meetings, sponsor meetings, big games, going out in public, going out to dinner, I just put on something I bought at Twill. It's just that simple. If I put on something I bought at Twill, I'm going to look good. I'm playing a Randy Shavers golf tournament on Monday. I'm going to wear Twill stuff to that too. Golf, walk around town, dinner, whatever. TwillMN.com. Go to Twill in the Edina Galleria. They're laid back. They love talking sports. They're nice people. Tell them we sent you. You'll have a good time, and you'll end up walking out with something great.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. Back to your worst seats in the house. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, final segment of the show. September 29th is our next live show. That is at Tuttle's. And then October 6th is at Elsie's, and October 23rd is at Tuttle's. Anthony, talking to Ryan Carter the other day, he was talking about all your sensors and your clubs and all the stuff that you've spent money on instead of spending it on Margot. Tell us about it.
Well, it's great.
Sounds like you're cheating.
It's not cheating. It's a stat tracker that I love called Arcos, and it's fascinating to me. You don't keep score. It does it for you. It knows when you take a club out of your bag and hit your shot, and then when you get to the next shot, it then automatically measures it. Your drive went this far, your 5-wood went this far, you took this many putts. All you do is tap a button when you're standing next to the flag because it doesn't know where the flag was each day, and then you're done. And it tracks all your stats for you, and it's helped my game a lot. Not enough to compete with carts, but it's helped my game a lot. It's been fascinating. Ariana and I did win a big golf match today against the arch rival Varley family, a college roommate of mine and his son. We had to go to 2 playoff holes to get it done, but we got it done.
Which explains the late podcast today.
Yeah, a little bit. It was dark.
Did you like my reply to you when you told me that we were pushing it back a little bit?
I don't remember what it was.
I was pointing out to you, yeah, I'm the one that's been working since 6 a.m., but let's push it as long as you want. I said, but we are going to start the second I get there. And of course, I walk in and we didn't start.
We were
right
close.
Away. But I pushed my weight around in here, and poor Margot had to change the protein on your dinner.
Right. This would have fallen into one of those Mondays with Margot that the folks on our last Europe trip wanted to. Yeah. They wanted us to start to promote on social media. It was a good meal by Margot, and I knew that it was going to be dark and we'd have to be off the course. So that was when we set the original time, and then when we had to go to a second playoff.
Anything to make your life easier, I'm fine. It doesn't matter that I've been working since 6 a.m. and I was at the rink today from 9 to 2. Okay? It doesn't matter.
That is a grueling day for you.
It is.
We just found out you're not even taking like the first month of road trips.
That doesn't mean I'm not working.
Well, I mean,
I got a lot of work to do. I got Olympics to get ready for.
Yeah, I was working all day today too.
Yeah, on the golf course.
Well, until I got to the golf course.
Yeah. I know it was grueling that you showed up to your second practice this year.
Yeah, it was more than 2, but it was. But we had some prep meetings today to get ready for the season. It's our first broadcast Thursday night. I'm excited about that. It's always interesting when you start to call a game for the first time, and it's funny how there are years where it feels really awkward, and then there have been other years where you start calling the game and you feel like, all right, it feels right back to normal, back in the swing of things. And we'll see. We're going to have Billy Guerin with us on Thursday night's broadcast. I think he's coming on in the first intermission and maybe staying through the first half of the second period. So that's always worth listening to get insights from him on what's happening and on all the players. Not just, I'm sure he'll update us or at least give us some idea of what Kirill's situation has them all riled up. But yeah, it's I'm really excited just to get back in the broadcast chair and get going. Ryan Carter's doing the game with me tomorrow night, so it'll be fun. Man, I was last night was a game. Like I know it's difficult doing your job, and I know that you've obviously sometimes it's hard to recognize numbers, but oh my God, the Dallas play-by-play guy who, I thought the broadcast was really good on Victory Plus. I thought Brent Severin, who filled in for Darryl Ray, did a great job. But the play-by-play guy, who also I thought called a great game, but he could not once in the game. Like, we're talking, like, you have a 50-50 shot, could not figure out Hinestroza from Ube Kubel from the entire game. Even in overtime on the breakaway, he has Ube Kubel coming in. The previous shift, he had Hinestroza as Ube Kubel. Like, it was just crazy how he just couldn't recognize 18 and 19. Yeah, and I think Josh is one of the better play-by-play guys in the league.
It wasn't Josh. Good. It was like they didn't have their normal broadcaster doing the game on Victory Plus. So.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So that would make some sense. I was listening to Joe O'Donnell and Wes Walls on the radio because I was driving home last night. And they had, I'm sure they nailed it, but it was on the radio, so I would have no way of knowing. You would never know.
That's why it's great being a radio guy. You're never being accused of being wrong.
But I will say there are times where there are guys that over the years you would catch wrong, and it was amazing to me how many times the same guys would catch me and it would just frustrate the hell out of me. And one was Eric Haula and Jason Zucker. They're both lefties. They're both fast.
Yeah.
Their numbers both ended in 6. And there were so many times where like one of them would have just jumped on the ice. And every time I guessed wrong. So the guy would jump on the ice and I'd see it and I'd be, I don't know which one it is. And you'd like, it's got to be Zucker because Haula was just on the ice. That's all going through my mind like as the puck is coming.
Yeah.
And it almost without fail, as soon as I would start to say the guy's name, he'd turn and I'd see it was the other guy. And I'm trying to remember some other examples. I know Edmonton had a couple of guys that I used to really struggle to see the jerseys clearly. And theirs are like colorblind tests with that stupid blue and orange combo that they have. And they had kind of fat numbers and,
well, and Uwe Krubel and Histroza, 16 and 18. So it looks, they're both righties. They're both long names. So I'm sure it was, it's easy for me to say I'm watching it on TV, but it was just, There
are just some times where there'll be guys that, and maybe it's that, who they play with or the position, or there's just some things where it's like that guy, I seem to get those two guys mixed up often. And maybe that was the case with whoever was calling the game last night.
Yeah, like I said, it was sort of a streamed down version, I think. But I always like listen to.
I wonder why they didn't have their regular guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was maybe they just like kind of like Tom doesn't. They don't do preseason games. maybe Darrell Rice likes like, you know what, freaking give me a real game and that's when I'll go to work.
That seems like you'd want the tune-up
just
games,
the practice. Yeah, for practice and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know why. All right, let's go to some Twitter questions. Dylan asks, is there a spot for Haight in the NHL if he looks more ready than Yurov? What do you think?
Well, I think it's really unlikely. I mean, I suppose if he looks more ready than Yurov, there's a chance, but I think it's really unlikely based on just the numbers of the other guys that they have around here right now.
This is Richard asked, for a while it seemed like Yurov was a shoo-in and Ohgren needed to earn it. Has that flipped? I mean, Ohgren looks like a guy that spent a lot of time last year in Iowa and lit it up, and now he's come into camp extremely, confident. Where this is new to Yurov. It's first time in North America. It's first time everything. I mean, as I joked earlier in the show, I mean, he told Joe Smith that Vladimir Tarasenko is doing his laundry right now. I mean, just imagine how difficult this must be for him, just everything away from the rink, let alone what's going on the rink. So everything's an adjustment. So, maybe at the end of the day, some time in Iowa will be needed for him. We'll see.
I think both of those guys are still in the prove-it stage.
Yep.
I mean, I think neither one of them is guaranteed a spot or a role. I think they both are in a spot where they're fighting right now for an NHL spot and for every minute they get on the ice.
Yep. Doc, Corn Dog Dreams asks, have we got our e-bug yet? That rule starts next year. So the way it works starting next season is that teams will be allowed to, like a bullpen catcher, to hire sort of a third goalie. Right now it's been Marc-Andre Fleury. He's on the ice every single morning getting ready for his preseason games, taking pucks from guys like Brodin and Michael Milne and players like that, Zeke Boyum. But we'll see what happens next year. Obviously, if you have pro experience, like you can't have a future Hall of Famer be your third goalie. But this year it'll be Connor Beaupre like normal, and then we'll see what they do next year. By the way, we were done with Vinny's thoughts. We got everything in. Yep. Wild Watcher wants to know, what's your gut say about where things are headed with Kaprizov? I mean, right now I don't think they're in a total standstill. And I don't think the Wild are inclined to just keep on upping its offer.
I don't think the Wild will offer more. I still think they'll agree to an extension before the season starts.
Interesting. PJ asks, do the Wild plan to replace Ray Shero so Guerin has someone with previous GM experience to consult with? I don't get that impression. I mean, Ray was just perfect. His availability and his relationship with Billy. They have a really, they've added to their front office. There's a lot of people around now. They have 3 assistant general managers. Mike Modano's around. Derek Stepan's around. Marc-Andre Fleury's around. Brad Bombardier around. Matty Hendricks is around. Did I forget anybody? Stepan, Goose, Alex Galgoski. I mean, there's a lot of people in that front office now. Would it help to have sort of that person to bounce off of? Probably, but right now I don't think that's priority number one.
Yeah, I don't get that idea either. And there is a difference though. Like you can lean on, let's just use like Mike Modano as an example. He knows hockey talent when he sees it, but there's a difference when you've been the general manager and you've had to negotiate a trade, and you know what it's like to be on those calls. That's where a guy like that it has value, just
especially in a situation. What's going on with Kaprizov now is just having creative people that have had to deal with this type of thing before. It definitely would be really helpful.
And
Jason,
I'm sure Billy's got those guys, whether they're on the Wild's payroll or not.
Exactly.
He's got guys out there that if he really needed to bounce something off of somebody he's got guys you could lean on.
Yep. Jason asks, which January road trip would be better for a Wild fan to go on? Anaheim, LA, or Buffalo, Toronto, or Montreal, based on cities, teams, and barns you get to see. I mean, again, it kind of depends what you want. If you want the incredible weather and a really cool road trip, Anaheim, LA is perfect. But if you want the hockey, the barns, I mean, going to Buffalo and then driving to Toronto and Montreal, those are great. That's a great trip.
I think there's a bigger difference for this year, though, is that the LA Anaheim one is 5 days where it's one flight out there and you get 5 days in the same general area. We're going to see those 3 games. We might rent a car, go to Rodeo Drive, and see if we can avoid accidents. But the problem with the Buffalo, Toronto, Montreal trip this year is that Toronto and Montreal are back to back. So if you make that trip, it isn't as good as it's been in other years, just because you'd have an off night in Buffalo, then a game. And Buffalo's not bad. There isn't much there, but then the ability to drive to Toronto is nice. An off night in Toronto would be amazing. But then you don't get an off night in Montreal because they play Toronto and Montreal back to back. So unless you were extending the trip by a day to get a night in Montreal, because Old Montreal to me is the best food and wine stop in the NHL. Toronto's terrific, but I'd put Montreal number 1. So if you had an off night there, if you were able to extend the trip by a night there, I'd go that route. Otherwise, for this year, I might pick just go spend 5 or 6 days in the sun just after the first of the year.
Johnny goes, here's a fun bit of speculation. If Kirill Kaprizov signs, who is more likely to be traded to the Wild, or Temi Panarin or Evgeny Malkin? It's so funny that he asked this question because I did joke in a text message to Joe Smith yesterday. I said, that if the Wild sign Kaprizov, that if they're in a big-time playoff position, that, Billy, it would make all the sense in the world to go after Malkin. Like, it really would be.
Depending on what else had happened with your roster and what you might need at that point.
But the point being that he and Kirill are so tight.
Right. And that Billy's got a relationship with Gino.
Yeah. Exactly. Zach Spicer, how does Zuki still fit this team if Ohgren does indeed step up and take his lineup spot? I mean, Zuki's got 1 year left on his contract, and we don't know what his future entails because we haven't had a chance to talk to him yet if he's going into this year thinking retirement or not. But I would think this is probably his last year in Minnesota unless Kirill signs and says, I want Zuki back, and Zuki says, I'm coming back, and Billy says, okay, he's coming back. But, I mean, if Ohgren looks great, to me, Zuki's still a top 6 winger on this team, and you put Ohgren now with like a Hartman and Foligno, that could be a great line.
Terrific.
So,
line.
Yeah.
And, this, as I've said, every time we ever discuss this stuff, if Ohgren's better than Zuccarello, then he'll take his job. And if he's not, Zuccarello will stay there, and Ohgren will get bumped down in the lineup.
Brett asks, you and Anthony's prediction on the best and worst teams in the Central this year. I think the worst team in the Central is still going to be Chicago. Best team?
Boy, to me it's.
I mean, Blackwood's hurt in Colorado to start the year. I do like Colorado with Landeskog back, so
I think Colorado's number 1. Dallas to me last year was the deepest team in the division, but they're not anymore. I think Winnipeg was a little bit of fool's gold last year. And